I have seen the torch of freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dreams some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So a deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we have in this wonderful land of ours. I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is Sunday, April 23rd, 2017. We are live tonight and taking calls at 501-258-8326. That's 501-258-8326. And also on Skype at George K. Simon is the Skype name. If you're wanting to call internationally, I'll be happy to take your call. We have a good program planned for you today, and we already do have a caller on the line. So I'm going to go ahead and take this call. We've got a lot of things to talk about this evening, but we're going to go ahead and take this first call because this individual has unfortunately tried to call in several times before, and our system was not working. And one time it was actually a pre-recorded program, even though it wasn't supposed to be. So I'm going to invite the caller on. Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, good evening. Well, oh my goodness.
It's okay. You don't have to be nervous. Just relax, and I'm sure that the folks listening are going to be very interested in what you have to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I have been receiving your emails in terms of the blog, and I have purchased your books within the last week, so I'm really looking forward to receiving them and reading them. And so I'll probably have more questions after I read the books. I have been reading your newsletter, which I enjoy very, very much. It's given me a lot of insight,
mm-hmm.
and I feel very supported and encouraged, because I have felt that I was really alone, because I've been to 4 different therapists, and it hasn't been successful.
Mm-hmm. Have you experienced what I talk about in some of my workshops, therapy-induced trauma, whereby you went for help and somehow ended up feeling worse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot in the training workshops that I do. As a matter of fact, I was just in Minnesota last week in Duluth and St. Cloud and Minneapolis doing training workshops and talking about that very thing with the therapist that I was working with. So I wish I could say that that was an infrequent occurrence, but unfortunately, it happens more than we care to see have happen.
I was really moved by the differentiation that you talk about in terms of the traditional as opposed to the new school of thought well, as I said earlier, I'm kind of new. I haven't read your books, but I'm looking forward to receiving them. I have purchased them, but
which of the books have you ordered?
I ordered the In Sheep's Clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I ordered two other books. The names escape me at this moment.
Would it be either Character Disturbance or
yes.
Character Disturbance and either How Did We End Up Here or The Judas Syndrome?
It's How Did We End Up Here?
How Did We End Up Here? Okay. Well, those sound like the three best books for you, actually.
Yes.
So, what would you like to address tonight?
Well, I had an opportunity to listen to two of the recordings during this last week, and the one that kind of stands out in my mind was the malevolent.
The Malignant Narcissist?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
Malignant Narcissism, uh-huh.
Yes, and that one I could really identify with in terms of the situation. And
for the benefit of those listening out there, let me just explain just a little bit. What makes narcissism truly malignant is when there is a significant lack of both shame and empathy, especially empathy. Some narcissists are actually relatively more benign than others because they at least have some capacity to feel and some capacity for shame about their behavior. And so they're a little bit easier to deal with. They still, on the surface, might be a little arrogant and obnoxious from time to time. But underneath it all, you find a genuine human being who is needy and whom, once you can get past their surface level braggadocio, there's some lovability there. But with more malignant narcissists, they simply don't care about you. They'll use and exploit you. And that's because they don't have any empathy and they have no shame about their behavior. And the degree to which their empathy and shame deficits exist determines how severely malignant their narcissism is. So that's what I talk about in that article. I'm just doing that for the benefit of the folks listening tonight.
Yes, that's good to hear. That's good to hear the definition.
Yes, ma'am?
There's just so many things going on in my mind right now.
Did you have a specific question or two for me?
Well, I wasn't anticipating talking on the telephone directly, so I don't feel as though I'm really kind of prepared right now to.
Well, would you like
maybe after I read the books, maybe I'll have more questions.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing your sentiments about the blog articles and about the blog itself. The blog is very dear to me. There are hundreds of articles on the blog, and sometimes it takes a while to sift through them all. But it's not just the articles. What really makes me proud of the blog at drgeorgesimon.com or manipulative-people.com. What really makes me proud of this multi-site that we're developing is the commentary by the various commentators. It's not just the articles, but most of the commentators have some very helpful anecdotes to share. They have some very good advice to give others who are looking for advice. So it's not just the articles themselves that are of help, but also the many commentators' input that really makes the blog what it is. So I hope that you find both within the blog and within the books the resources that you need to help empower yourself and to heal and to figure out what you need to figure out. And maybe after you've got some of that digested, then maybe you can call back in. And if you have some questions you want to ask of me or just some information that you'd like to share over the air that you think would be beneficial for those others in the listening audience, I'd be happy to take your call.
Oh, okay. Well, two last things. First of all, I want to thank you for all the work that you do, and it's just been so beneficial to me in terms of gaining insight and just feeling as though a professional truly understands what is truly going on. And that's one thing. And then the other thing is I would like to know if you're going to have any other books coming out.
I am. There's a book that I have been hanging up for many months, and that's largely because it's in the very final editing stage, and I've been traveling so heavily doing workshops. And I'm a stickler for accuracy and for good content. And even though the book is 90% written, I'm the one that's kind of hanging up its final release. It's an expansion of something that you'll read when you get the book Character Disturbance. And in my book Character Disturbance, I describe what I call the 10 Commandments of Sound Character Development. They're the life lessons, the important life lessons that somebody has to master and learn if they're going to turn out to be basically a decent person. And I'm writing an entire book with my co-author, Dr. Kathy Armistead, about that very topic. Its title is titled The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. And it will be out by the end of the spring, I promise. But right now it's still in final edits. It was due last summer, but it didn't make it. So it'll be a while, but it'll be well worth the wait when it comes out.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, wonderful. Well, as I said earlier, I look forward to receiving the the books that I ordered this last week, and then I will make sure to call in again. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for calling in. Take care now. Bye-bye. Well, the persistence pays off there. I was so sorry that the caller had tried so many other times to get through and had not been able to. And once again, now that we have a system that is working, if you want to join the conversation, you can either join me via Skype at my Skype name of George K. Simon, or 501-258-8326. That's 501-258-8326, and I'll be happy to take your call. Well, I mentioned that there's a lot to talk about. The caller mentioned the articles on narcissism. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, because I've been talking for the last couple of weeks on the blog at manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com. Either URL will get you there because the site is, my website and blog are not being combined into a single multi-site. And at the blog, you can find hundreds of articles, timely articles on character disturbance, all the various types of disturbed characters you're likely to meet in your life and that are likely to cause you no end of grief, and how to understand these folks, how to deal with these folks, how to empower yourself, and most especially, not only how to protect yourself, but how to avoid future victimization, how to become basically a more astute judge of the character of individuals so that you don't put yourself in a situation again where you get blindsided or bamboozled or taken advantage of in your relationship. So I invite you to take a little trip on over on the web, surf on over to drgeorgesimon.com or manipulative-people.com. Either URL will take you to our new multi-site with hundreds of timely articles and wonderful comments and additions from the various commentators, all the avid readers of the blog. And I also invite you to avail yourself of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, the international bestseller on how to deal with manipulative personality types, and Empower Yourself, and also my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age. Character disturbance being my more comprehensive work on all the kinds of disturbed characters you're going to encounter out there, including the two types of narcissists that I'll be talking about in just a minute and that I've been writing about in the blog. And then my book, The Judas Syndrome, my only faith-based book, about how genuine faith can really transform a life. And finally, my book, How Did We End Up Here? The Relationship Partner Survival Guide, How to Survive and Thrive in This Character Disordered World of Ours, co-written with my co-author, Dr. Kathy Armistead. So I invite you to avail yourself of those books and also the YouTube videos, and then to tune in every week for Character Matters at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, and join the conversation if you wish. We're going to be talking tonight about a couple of things. We're first going to be talking about the two types of narcissism that I've been writing about. And then we have a situation here in my home state of Arkansas that I wanted to talk about a little bit more. I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but I want to talk about it again because it's a matter dear to my heart. And the more people that get active in taking some proactive steps to help make this world a better place, the better off we'll all be. The only thing necessary for the triumph. I see we have a caller calling in. Hang on one second. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hello. Good evening, Dr. Simon. My name is Simone. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Well, I just wanted to start by saying I totally relate to the brain fog of your last caller, where after going through narcissistic abuse, you're kind of not sure what just happened.
Yes.
Or how to get your mind back together.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have a couple questions for you, and then maybe a crazy story.
Okay.
So I grew up in a home where my mom was basically emotionally unavailable. And I have an older sister who's 12 years older, and I think that she was, assigned to watch me quite a bit. And so she loved me. She would dress me up and, make me look pretty when I was little. But I think that she resented the responsibility of having to look after me.
Uh-huh.
And then all of her issues, too, from childhood that, like my parents, my mother, she really didn't know anything about being a nurturing parent. So fast forward into adulthood, I tend to have relationships with narcissistic men. And, the love bombing stage, when I'm with a narcissist in the very beginning, it's like time stops. It just feels like such a good connection. I'm wondering if you have anything to say about that.
Of the two types of narcissists, which type do you tend to gravitate to?
Well, these last few years, I have just been with, friendships with women who are narcissists. I'm currently living with a woman who's, narcissistic. I don't want to say she's, has a person that had, NPD, but she's definitely, the sadistic type, the one that needs to be above you. When I was younger and I was dating narcissistic men, I felt like I had more of an edge because I had, a lot of confidence, and it was, a lot of banter, and I managed to hold my own because I was independent financially. So I've never really been, I wouldn't say never. I would say that my first, my first relationship in high school, he was brought up by an abusive father, and his mother was abused, and so that he hadn't developed his abusive character yet. Although it started to show as we grew older.
Yeah.
Then my second boyfriend, my first adult relationship, definitely would put me in predicaments where I would have to demonstrate my devotion, demonstrate my love. He was a cheater. He, did all kinds of stuff. There was a lot of back and forth. We're breaking up. We're coming back together. Then, I did, now looking back, I see that my next several relationships were with narcissistic men, but they never gained the advantage over me. They weren't able to abuse me because I was independent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lately, though, it's like if there are, 10 options, I will gravitate toward the narcissist. And not even like 10 people in one room, but even say this one woman, for example, I found her through Airbnb, and I started staying with her. And, in the beginning, she was so sharing her life with me, and people tend to do that. And, I kind of fell into offering empathy and, kind of like being on her side and listening to her stories about her failed relationship with her daughter, who I later found out was anorexic. And, now I'm living with a woman who is, she has a disability, but she also has this tendency to want to be one up, to treat you like she's disgusted with you unless you're doing everything she wants you to at the exact moment she wants you to. There's a lot of, fake, like, oh, thank you for doing that for me, like that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like if there's a narcissist within a 25-mile radar, I will find a radius. I will find them.
Well, this is an interesting. All right. So Have you had any kind of professional counseling or been in therapy or anything like that before?
I had a very short period of therapy related to the crazy story I might want to share,
Okay.
but I couldn't continue. I couldn't continue on for long term.
And why was that?
For financial reasons.
Oh, for financial reasons. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell your crazy story, and then I may have a comment or two for you and a question or two for you.
Oh, God. Okay. Dr. Simon, this is so hard for me to talk to because I've turned to other people about this,
Uh-huh.
and I get shut down. So,
Well, I promise you won't get shut down. We'll listen to this. We'll listen to the story. You've already red flagged it for us as crazy, so we're prepared. And we'll take it as an informative and crazy, but hopefully informative story.
Okay. So, some years ago, I don't know if I should give a little background. So I had a spiritual awakening, and with that awakening came some promises from God about things that I would do in the future. And I had an opportunity to do it, but I didn't succeed. I felt, like I wasn't prepared. I felt like I couldn't believe it that I even had the opportunity in front of me, and I froze up, and the opportunity dissipated. So I was kind of depressed about that for some time. And I was in school, and I was going to Christian school, studying at this particular moment, enter the crazy story, I was studying the epistles of Paul, and I went to a party, not my first time there. I had been there several times, and there had been some connection with a person there.
Uh-huh.
And nothing serious. And whatever, we had I was following him on Facebook. He knew who I was. And I had a profound encounter with the living Christ. And I started, coming out of the sadness or the sense that I had missed something or that I had disappointed God. And this person was also in the periphery and mistook some of the stuff that I was posting and doing as being all about him. And I tried in a tactful way, as tactful as you can be on social media, to say, this isn't, I didn't come out and say this isn't all about you, but I made, insinuations that, I'm going through my own thing. Oh, and there you are also. And I tried to go and see this person and straighten it out with him, but he didn't want to have anything. He thought that I was just I was just a crazy person because he didn't know anything about me. He just saw my, spiritual resurrection, if you want to call it that, and my, my joy and my regeneration. Yeah. So, and I did feel a very strong connection to this person, energetically, psychically. It's not that this person was on my mind all the time, but if that person wanted my attention, I would respond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of sad that he didn't want to be my friend or, but whatever, it was fine. So later on, 3-4 months later, this person, gave me the impression. He created fake profiles. He came to be my Facebook friend. He was kind of like, toying with me, but I didn't know it. I thought he was just being playful. And so several months later, I felt like this person, wanted my attention. And what he did is he humiliated me. And so it was a public humiliation. I felt very ashamed. I, kind of drew back into myself.
Yeah.
And this pattern repeated 4 times between spring of 2010 and January of 2012.
Oh my.
Where I would, try to be doing the best that I can, managing my, everyday stuff, and, but rumors had started spreading where I live, and a perception of me was created
Yes.
And, people who snarky girlfriends from the past would have something to say, or, my ex would have something to say, or, people, when people get into a group mentality to find something wrong with you, the way to contribute is to also find something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So, I was like so devastated in August 2011. I had to have my mother come and stay with me for 2 weeks, where she would like stay in the bed with me, because I felt like I was like having a nervous breakdown, because I socially I felt destroyed, and
Yeah.
I felt like
you were wide open and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the way it goes. I don't mean to interrupt you here, but just to say that's the way it goes with any kind of spiritual awakening. When you come into deeper level contact with yourself, and you start feeling energies and seeing things in a way that you haven't ever before in life, you're pretty well wide open and vulnerable. The defenses are down, and other people who are not in that same space are going to misinterpret likely what they see. They're not going to understand it. And if they happen to have narcissistic tendencies, or if they just happen to have a strong ego, they may actually show some disdain for what appears to them to be some wackiness or ill health to the person undergoing this kind of experience. And so what I'm saying to you basically is these experiences are so deeply personal that unless you're really with a special individual who is of like mind and really gets it, you're not likely to have the kind of reception that you hope for. You're not likely to have somebody who really understands.
Well,
does that make sense?
Okay. Oh, sure. But along with this happening to me, there was, a smear campaign going on. I mean, I couldn't go really, I went traveling, and what they would do is that, there's a lot of gaslighting involved. Like, basically, they had put me into a box, categorized me as a certain type of person, and targeted me for abuse.
Yeah.
And so, and that was considered cool, and a lot of people knew about it. And then on top of it, I could sense this person, and I wasn't picking up on what their true intent was. So anyway, I went traveling for almost a year. This story gets crazier, okay?
Okay.
So I went traveling for a year. I decided, just leave that situation alone. I was going to, live quietly, work, rebuild my life, whatever. But then I would meet people, and they seemed to be, gaslighting me, making certain comments that, where they would just feign innocence, act like they didn't, like there was nothing to the comment, but it would be something hinting to this group gaslighting situation that had been going on. And if I went to social media, let's say I did something or I posted something, it was always even 2 years later, it was tied back to this person, and I couldn't understand why. So I felt like I was never going to be able to live my life, myself, until I told my side of the story. So I started writing to share my side, to share my experiences, what had happened. And that's when I found out that my computer and my telephone were hacked. And that everybody knew about it. And that they just weren't saying, they were monitoring what I'm doing. They were, helping themselves to content on my computer, looking at me through my webcam if I was naked.
Now,
How did I find out
Who was?
How did I find? Well, at first I didn't know who hacked me. I thought that maybe because of the notoriety with the original gaslighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that with that notoriety, maybe somebody, who knows where, China, Russia, Mexico, who knows where, that somebody with skills was, able to hack my computer or my phone.
So.
And so, yeah. So, that was 2014. Anyway, the pastor that I follow, she was like, apparently she knew about it. She was like, don't curse your crisis. God, not everything bad. God, not everything sent by God, but God can use everything for your good. So once I found out the computer and phone were hacked, I did get another phone. The computer was brand new because I had suspected that my last computer was hacked. I wasn't sure, but I had suspicion because I had reason to. It seemed like people knew what I was doing on my computer, and they would hint to it slightly, and they made me paranoid. So I did buy a new computer before I started writing. So a year passed. This person came while I was writing about what had happened. This person reappeared, right? Reappeared energetically. Reappeared, through. I could see that people on Facebook were egging him on, or maybe gaslighting me. I wasn't sure, but for whatever reason, this person did not come forward to straighten things out. That would have been a great chance for him to. He read what I wrote, knew my computer and phone was hacked. That would have been a great time for him to come forward and, tell me what exactly had happened. Hey, this is a misunderstanding. Let's be cool. But that never happened. So a year passed, nothing much happened. And in 2015, again, there was this. The attention would come in waves. I could spend months just doing my own thing, reading whatever I wanted to, but then there would be a build up to attention. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2015 came another wave of attention that I thought, well, maybe now if people know, because I really wanted to, go into the ministry, and so I thought, well, I have plenty of exposure with what I'm doing here. That was my hope that, people would, respond. But nothing happened. And then I went through a whole bunch of really negative experiences. I felt like I couldn't do much for myself. I don't know if it was because of the narcissistic abuse, if it was because, well, there have been times when I've gotten jobs and people have, participated in the hinting process, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very well-known situation. So they would, I would feel awkward, if I tried to socialize, again, it would happen that I would meet somebody, and then within a day or two, their phone number gets into my phone, and within a day or two, this person is now acting a little bit weird with me or looking at me like I'm weird. It did very much feel like wherever I went, whoever I met, I would be under a microscope. And so at that time, I just, I could not manage the regular details that other people could manage in their life. And anyway, I went through a bunch of hard trials, and I started writing more into my phone, and again there was support, and again there was confirmation, and again my pastors. I've got pastors, two pastors all over the country preaching to the. I don't know what to say, Dr. Simon, other than when I ask people to just tell me the truth, what is going on, people don't want to say, and I feel like it's very hard having this toxic secret, living under this toxic secret. It makes me vulnerable to just anybody who's aware of the situation can come along and play my strings, if you want to call it that, for pleasure. I've seen that over and over and again, where people will pluck your strings and kind of, enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. It sure sounds to me. It sure sounds to me like you're having a really hard time knowing what's real.
Yes.
Yeah. And even though you've been stressed financially in your past attempts to get some counsel, it sure sounds to me like it would be well worth your while to work with just one individual counselor for as long as it might take to build a really trusting therapeutic relationship. And I'm sure that somewhere in your area there is a mental health center where you can access that counseling at a cost that's reasonable for you to afford. But it sure sounds to me like that would be really profitable for you, because we can't work a lot of these things through on our own. We just can't. You also run a risk if you go from counselor to counselor to counselor. You really need to build a trusting relationship with an individual who you know has your back, basically, and whom you can open up to, and also who will dare to tell you objectively what they see and give you feedback that can be helpful to you.
Well, the thing is that I'm aware that if you're just hearing the story, that it sounds nutty, and yet it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't sound nutty to me. It sounds like you've been through an experience that has thrown you through a loop, and it also sounds to me like you've had a personal experience that's very difficult for others to understand. So you really, I think, would benefit from that kind of a relationship that is just not really possible very often on an individual basis outside of the professional arena. And I would encourage you to do what you can financially to find that resource for yourself. And I would bet that in your area, what area of the country are you from?
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Surely they have a mental health system in Florida whereby there are some community mental health networks where if they don't operate on some kind of sliding scale, they have some kind of provision for those who are financially strapped or whose insurance doesn't cover very much or who are underinsured or whatever the case may be. And stick with it. Stick with developing the kind of relationship that will help you work some of these things through. Because otherwise you're going to carry the burden alone, and it sounds like you've been trying to do that, and really none of us can do that. None of us can do that. None of us is really capable of processing all by ourselves what we need to process. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
I mean, I certainly hope that my books will help, and perhaps they will. And I surely hope that the articles on the blog and the comments by the commentators will help as well. But there's no substitute for a solid therapeutic relationship.
Dr. Simon, I just feel that when it's within someone's power to be real with you and they deny you that, to maintain allegiance to a group or to keep a secret from you, that is crazy making.
Well, it is crazy making. And that's why all of us benefit whenever there is a single human being in our lives that we can have that I-thou relationship with, that is nothing but mutually supportive and loving. And unfortunately, the state of things is in our world that those kinds of relationships are rare, And that's what a really well-trained therapist should be able to provide. And that's why therapeutic bonds can be so powerfully constructive. And that's why I'm urging you to consider that as strongly as you can, even if it would strap you to some degree. I think it would be worth your while. Does that make sense?
I just feel like the situation can be a blessing and it can also be a curse. You know, when you're being encouraged by your pastors to, you know, stand firm and stand in the faith and, you know, take the position that God has put you in, right, and do your best that you can within that situation.
Yeah.
And yet the stumbling block is not having all the facts.
Yeah. Well, I wish you well in that. You said earlier that you might have a question for me.
Well, I did. I mean, originally I started the conversation with my tendency to uncover the narcissist wherever they are and befriend them.
Well, I have a comment for you there, but that would be an excellent thing. That would be an excellent thing to pursue with an individual counselor. But I have a comment there for you. I have a sneaking little suspicion. And you can just kind of test this out. You can mull this over. We'll have to end our conversation soon, but you can kind of mull this over. And if it seems to make some sense to you, then wonderful. If it doesn't seem to resonate at all, then you can just discard it as a false intuition. But I'm going to share with you my intuition, okay?
Okay.
Generally speaking, when we're drawn to not just narcissistic individuals, but when we feel drawn to a situation or to a person that could easily be toxic in some way, when we're drawn to that, generally speaking, what's at work is a fear of genuine intimacy, where we're really vulnerable. So what we generally tend to do is put ourselves in situations, we don't do it wittingly, but we put ourselves in situations that are almost destined to fail. Because in some perverted way, that's actually a little safer than it is to be wide open and vulnerable. And, you know, to be safely wide open and vulnerable, somebody has to really love you. They have to really love you. And these days, that's a very rare commodity. And
yes, it is.
You know, so my intuition is telling me that that as independent as you may have been, as you said in your earlier days, there may be something there lurking underneath the surface about just how safe it feels to you to really basically give yourself away in a relationship and experience genuine intimacy. And that's just my suggestion. It's just my intuition. It might be something for you to really put on the table, some individual work with a therapist. But that's just the only comment, a little food for thought that I had for you.
Do you believe that God can be our therapist, or do you think that's not enough?
I believe that we most vividly experience God in our relationships with others. God is too incomprehensible at a non-real level. You practice a particular faith?
I do. I'm a Christian. I'm a mystic for 13 years. Because of this situation, I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in God's company.
Okay. Well, as a Christian, we believe that God is love.
Yes, and I do have trouble receiving it.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, the intuition proves
Right.
correct. So it is one thing to stay in the mystical realm. It's another thing to allow yourself to both give and receive the real deal. And because that's the hang up, and because you admit that you have trouble with it, my guess is that until you commit yourself to some relationship where you actually commit yourself and work some things through, be intimate with somebody. And these days, the safest ways to do that is with a well-trained therapist. Until you do that, you can't really know God at the level that we all need to know. So I'm giving you that as a suggestion. I hope you'll ponder that, and I wish you well. I hope the books empower you. I hope the blog articles empower you. I hope, if you wish, that you can call in again sometime. But
I didn't scare you, did I, Dr. Simon?
Oh, no, not at all.
You're like, I got to get off the phone with this woman.
No,
I'm sorry. I wanted to call you for some time, and I hesitate because this is something that you're right. Probably a therapist can help me process better. Someone that can, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. And check the blog. If you don't find somebody and you're interested in one of the consultations I offer, I'm willing to consider that too. Although I have to tell you that until I stop touring in June, the schedule is packed. But I'm doing a heck of a wind-up here. I've got several venues all over the next 6 or 7 weeks. And then I finally ease up and take a break and enter semi-retirement for the third time. So I appreciate your call. I hope I've been some help to you. I really wanted to spend some time before the program ends tonight talking about a dire situation that we face here. So I hope you'll stay tuned.
With the death row inmate.
Yes, it's made national news. Have you been keeping up with that?
I listened to your show, and I've also read a few articles online as they've come up.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Well, yes. In the interest of time here, I did want to mention this situation that we have here. It is remarkable. It is remarkable to me as a human being, not just as a therapist. Because as a therapist, unfortunately, and especially working with the population that I've been working with most of my career, the more damaged, broken folks among us, it is just remarkable the lack of reverence that exists these days for human life. And there are these two great drives in us all. There's this pleasure-seeking drive that dominates our life, that we're actually more married to than anything else. And then there is this life-sustaining drive. And they are in conflict with one another. No man can serve two masters. You cannot serve all the values of this world and the very essence of life itself. It's either one or the other. We hear a lot of talk from some folks about pro-life. This is more than about the unborn. This is about the preciousness and the sanctity of life itself. And unfortunately, for most of human history, life has been far too cheap. And on some streets of our country, in some cities, in some communities, life is ridiculously cheap. And there's only one way to change that. And that's with love. And for those who practice the Christian faith, we believe that it's what we're commanded to do all the time, in every situation, with our whole heart, with our whole mind, with our whole soul, and with our whole strength. We cannot say with any level of truthfulness that we love God or that we even know God when we can't say the same thing about our relationship with another human being. We have to be able to love our brothers and our sisters. And we have to be willing to pay the price of that love. Sometimes the price is very high. Sometimes very, very high indeed. It always takes a sacrifice of the ego, a sacrifice of self. It always takes a death of sorts to self. To let that vulnerability actually be embraced, that we all face when we open ourselves up to love. Not just to receiving it, but most especially to giving it. We don't have any control over what comes back, but we can always make the loving choice. We can always make the open choice. It's up to us. And here in Arkansas, this tragedy that I'm asking for prayers for is that regardless of how you feel about the death penalty, to want to hurry up and rush the executions of 8 people over 11 days simply because the drug you want to use to kill them with is going to lose its shelf life, and you want to hurry up and get the job done. Regardless of what appeals could be filed or what justice could be served, is just unconscionable. We have one person who insisted from the very, very beginning that although they were not a stellar person, they did not commit the crime for which they committed. And all they were pleading for the entire time, for 20 years, was a DNA test to prove that innocence. And the state denied it repeatedly and executed that person just days ago. It's unconscionable. The level of respect that we have for human life. And that must change. I'm Dr. George Simon. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll be with me again for another edition of Character Matters. Join me again next week. Should be a live program once again. And God bless you all. I'll see you again next week. Thank you.